The message arrived on a Tuesday morning when most of Earth's leaders were sleeping. A brilliant flash of blue light filled the sky above the United Nations building in New York, and suddenly a strange metal object appeared floating in the air. It was smooth and round, about the size of a basketball, and it hummed with an energy that made nearby electronics spark and chirp. Ambassador Jake Morrison was drinking his third cup of coffee in his office when his assistant Amy Bradford burst through the door. She was holding a small device that looked like nothing human technology had ever produced. It was warm to the touch and seemed to glow from within. "Sir, you need to see this," Amy said, barely able to contain her excitement. "It just appeared on my desk 5 minutes ago. Look at this." Jake took the device carefully. As soon as his fingers touched it, words began forming in his mind. Not his words. Someone else's words, speaking in perfect English inside his head. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are the Galactic Council, a union of civilized species from across the stars. After watching your world for many cycles, we have decided you may be ready to join us. We invite you to send representatives to our great station at the edge of your galaxy. This device will guide your ships to us. You have 1 Earth month to prepare." Jake nearly dropped the device. He looked at Amy, whose eyes were wide with wonder and fear. They had always wondered if humans were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. Within hours, every major government on Earth knew about the invitation. Scientists studied the device but could not understand how it worked. It seemed to break several laws of physics just by existing. Engineers tried to build ships capable of traveling to the coordinates the device provided, but realized they would need technology far beyond anything Earth possessed. That's when the device surprised them again. 3 days after the first message, it projected a hologram showing blueprints for a faster-than-light engine. The plans were incredibly complex, but human scientists were smart enough to follow them. The device seemed to know exactly what humans needed. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was chosen as the mission's xenobiologist. She spent weeks studying everything the device had shown them about alien life. The images were beautiful and terrifying. Some aliens looked almost human, while others were so strange she could barely understand what she was looking at. Command Captain Lisa Stone was picked to lead the military side of the mission. She had been in the Navy for 20 years and had commanded submarines and aircraft carriers. Now she would command humanity's first starship, the Terra's Pride. Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson worked day and night with teams around the world to build the ship. The alien technology was unlike anything they had seen before, but somehow human engineers made it work. They added their own touches too, making the ship as human as possible, while still following the alien plans. The Terra's Pride was completed 3 weeks after the message arrived. It was beautiful, a mix of alien curves and human angles. The ship was large enough to hold 50 people and contained living quarters, laboratories, meeting rooms, and even a small garden where Elena could study how Earth plants grew in space. Jake spent those weeks preparing for the most important diplomatic mission in human history. He studied every piece of information they had about the aliens. He practiced speeches and learned about human achievements that might impress their hosts. He tried to imagine what it would be like to stand in a room with beings from other worlds. On the morning of departure, crowds gathered around the launch site in Nevada. People from every nation came to watch humanity take its first step into the larger universe. Jake stood on the bridge of the Terra's Pride, looking out at Earth one last time. The blue planet looked so small and peaceful from space. "Ready, Ambassador?" Lisa asked from the captain's chair. Jake nodded. "Start the engines, Captain. Let's go meet our neighbors." The ship hummed with power, and reality seemed to bend around them. In a flash of light that could be seen from Earth, the Terra's Pride vanished, carrying humanity's hopes toward the stars. The journey to the Council space station took 6 days. Jake Morrison watched through the ship's windows as they passed stars and planets unlike anything humans had ever seen. Some stars burned green or purple instead of yellow. One planet they flew by had 3 moons that sparkled like diamonds. Elena Rodriguez spent hours in the observation deck, taking pictures and notes. Every new sight made her realize how little humans knew about the universe. Marcus Thompson was amazed by how well the alien technology worked. The ship ran so smoothly it felt like they were sitting still. On the 6th day, Amy Bradford called everyone to the bridge. "Look ahead," she said, pointing out the main window. What they saw took their breath away. A massive space station hung in the darkness, bigger than any city on Earth. It was shaped like a giant wheel, slowly spinning in space. Lights covered its surface like stars, and ships moved around it like fish swimming near a coral reef. "My God," Lisa Stone whispered. "It's beautiful." The station was so large that Earth's moon could have fit inside it with room to spare. As they got closer, they could see that it was made of different sections, each built in a different style. Some parts looked like crystal cathedrals, others like flowing metal sculptures. A voice came through their radio, speaking perfect English but with a strange accent. "Human vessel Terra's Pride, you are expected. Follow the blue lights to docking bay 77. A line of blue lights appeared, leading them toward a section of the station. Lissa carefully piloted the ship through the maze of other vessels. She saw ships that looked like living creatures, others that seemed to be made of pure energy, and some so strange she couldn't guess how they moved. They docked with a soft thud. Jake straightened his best diplomatic uniform and checked his appearance one last time. Elena gathered her scientific equipment. Marcus made sure all ship systems were secure. Amy organized the files and gifts they had brought from Earth. The airlock opened with a hiss. On the other side stood 3 beings unlike anything from Earth's imagination. The first was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and silver hair that seemed to flow like water. Its eyes were large and completely black. It wore robes that changed color as it moved. The second looked like it was made of living crystal. Light passed through its body, creating rainbows on the walls. It had no face as humans understood it, but somehow they could feel it looking at them. The third was the strangest of all. It looked almost human, but its skin was bronze and covered with intricate patterns. It had 4 arms and wings that folded against its back. Its eyes glowed with a soft golden light. The blue-skinned being stepped forward and spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "I am Diplomat Tulvex of the Hegemony Worlds. Welcome, humans, to Council Station Prime." Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly, as he had practiced. "I am Ambassador Jake Morrison of Earth. We are honored to be here." Tulvex's expression was hard to read, but Jake thought he saw something like amusement in those black eyes. "Yes, honored. Come, the Council waits to evaluate you." The word evaluate sent a chill down Jake's spine, but he kept his face calm. They followed Tulvex through corridors that were almost too beautiful to believe. The walls seemed to be made of liquid light, and the ceiling showed images of distant galaxies. Other aliens stopped to stare as the humans passed. Some pointed and whispered in languages that sounded like music or static or grinding metal. Jake noticed that many of the looks they received were not friendly. They entered a vast hall where hundreds of different beings sat in curved rows. At the center was a raised platform. Tulvex gestured for the humans to climb the steps. "The Council of Species will now hear from the newest applicants," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Jake looked out at the sea of alien faces and took a deep breath. This was it. Humanity's first moment on the galactic stage. The council chamber fell silent as Jake Morrison stepped forward to the center of the platform. Hundreds of alien eyes focused on him and his team. The silence was so complete that he could hear his own heartbeat. A being that looked like a tree made of silver metal rose from the front row. When it spoke, its voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "I am Chancellor Zeftar of the Valdarian Empire. We will now hear from each species about their achievements and worthiness to join our council." 3 different species presented before the humans. Each one was more impressive than the last. The Valdarians spoke first. Zeftar waved his 4 metal arms, and holograms filled the air above the platform. The images showed planets where gravity flowed upward like rivers, cities that floated in space without any support, and ships that moved by bending reality itself. We Veldarians conquered gravity 50,000 years ago, Zeftar announced. We have colonies in 17 galaxies. Our science allows us to reshape matter with our thoughts alone. Jake tried not to show how amazed he felt. 50,000 years. Humans had only learned to fly 100 years ago. Next came the Nexeri, the crystal beings. When they spoke, their words appeared as colors in the air rather than sounds. The translator in Jake's ear turned the colors into English. We Nexeri transcended physical matter 12,000 years ago. Our consciousness exists in quantum dimensions your minds cannot comprehend. We explore the universe through pure thought. More holograms showed the Nexeri diving into black holes like swimming pools, talking to forms of life made of pure energy, and creating new stars just for fun. The third species was the Thraxians. They looked mostly human except for their bronze skin and golden eyes. Their leader, Admiral Velkov, stood proudly as he spoke. The Thraxian people conquered death itself 8,000 years ago. We download our minds into new bodies when the old ones wear out. Our oldest citizens remember the birth of this galaxy. The holograms showed Thraxians walking through fires that would melt steel, surviving in the vacuum of space without suits, and fighting creatures made of living storm clouds. When the presentations ended, Chancellor Zeftar turned to Jake. Now, humans, tell us of your achievements. What makes you worthy to stand among species who have mastered the fundamental forces of existence? Jake stepped forward and began to speak. We humans first learned to make fire only 500,000 years ago. We invented writing 5,000 years ago. We learned to fly just over a century ago. A sound rippled through the chamber. It took Jake a moment to realize what it was. Laughter. The aliens were laughing at them. Fire. Someone called out. You still use combustion. Writing? Another voice mocked. Such a primitive way to store information. Admiral Velkov stood up, his golden eyes shining with amusement. Did they just say they learned to fly 100 years ago? My people were traveling between stars when your species was still living in caves. The laughter grew louder. Jake heard someone say chemical rockets, and the laughter became a roar. Elena Rodriguez stepped closer to Jake, her face red with embarrassment. Amy Bradford looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Chancellor Zeftar raised his arms for silence, but Jake could see the amusement in his metal face. Humans, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. Perhaps you should tell us about your greatest technological achievement. Jake took a deep breath. Last year, we successfully landed a small robot on one of our neighboring planets. The chamber exploded with laughter again. Some aliens were laughing so hard they fell out of their seats. Others were pointing at the humans and making jokes in their own languages. A robot. Velkov wheezed. On a neighboring planet, we have robots that create galaxies for entertainment. Jake stood still, his face calm despite the mockery around him. But Elena could see his hands were clenched into fists at his sides. The humiliation was complete, but somehow Jake Morrison did not break. He waited for the laughter to die down, his eyes never leaving Chancellor Zeftar's metal face. Something was building behind those human eyes, something the council would not expect. The laughter finally died down, but the smirks remained on alien faces throughout the chamber. Chancellor Zeftar straightened his metal frame and looked down at the human delegation with something that could only be described as pity. Humans, he said slowly, as if talking to children, your efforts are admirable for such a young species. But surely you understand that galactic civilization requires a certain level of advancement. Admiral Velkov stood up again, his bronze skin gleaming under the chamber's lights. His 4 arms gestured dramatically as he spoke. Perhaps we should explain to these primitive beings what real civilization looks like. More holograms appeared above the platform. These showed massive fleets of ships, each one the size of Earth's moon. Cities that surrounded entire stars, harvesting their energy. Weapons that could make suns explode with the push of a button. This is the power required to maintain order in the galaxy, Velkoth continued, to defend against the chaos that exists beyond our borders. Tell me, humans, what could your tiny metal boxes possibly contribute to such forces? A Nexari crystal being pulsed with mocking colors. The translator converted its display into words. Perhaps they could entertain us with stories of their quaint chemical explosions. More laughter rippled through the chamber. Jake Morrison remained standing perfectly still, but Alina Rodriguez noticed something different about him now. His stillness wasn't from fear or embarrassment anymore. It was the kind of stillness a predator shows right before it strikes. Another species, looking like giant insects with rainbow wings, clicked and buzzed among themselves. Their translator announced their words. These mammals still think in terms of individual planets. How adorable. Yes, agreed a blob-like creature that seemed to be made of living metal. They probably believe their single world holds some kind of significance. Velkoth walked closer to the platform where the humans stood. Let me be clear, humans. Your species has achieved nothing worthy of note. You fight among yourselves over patches of dirt. You poison your own world. You've barely left your gravity well. And yet you think you deserve to sit among species who have ruled galaxies for millennia. His golden eyes blazed with contempt. You are barely evolved primates who learned to make fire yesterday. Your technology is thousands of years behind our simplest tools. Your lifespans are so short you can't even remember your own history properly. Some council members were nodding in agreement. Others were still chuckling at the human's predicament. The truth is, Velkoth continued, his voice growing louder, humanity should go back to its little blue world and wait another 1,000 years. Maybe by then you'll have learned to build ships that don't rely on controlled explosions to move. Chancellor Zeftar spoke again, his voice carrying the weight of authority. The Thraxian admiral speaks wisdom. Humans clearly need more time to develop. Much more time. Perhaps in 10,000 years, when you've learned to manipulate matter at the molecular level, we might reconsider your application. If they survive that long. Added a serpent-like being with scales that shifted colors. Most primitive species destroy themselves before achieving real advancement. The chamber buzzed with agreement. Alina felt her cheeks burning with shame and anger. Marcus Thompson's jaw was clenched so tight she thought he might break his teeth. Amy Bradford stared at her feet, unable to meet anyone's eyes. But Jake Morrison just stood there, listening to every word. His breathing was calm. His posture relaxed. If Alina didn't know him so well, she might think he wasn't affected by the insults at all. But she did know him. She had worked with Jake for 5 years. She had seen him negotiate with terrorists, deal with international crises, and face down world leaders who thought they could intimidate him. Alina knew that look in his eyes. Jake Morrison was about to do something that would change everything. The question was, what could one human diplomat possibly say that would shake a chamber full of beings who thought humans were nothing more than clever animals? Velkoth raised his voice for a final insult. Perhaps humans should focus on learning to feed their own population before dreaming of the stars. That's when Jake Morrison smiled. The smile on Jake Morrison's face was not what anyone expected. It wasn't angry or bitter. It was the kind of smile that made smart people start paying attention. Jake stepped forward, his hands behind his back. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear, carrying easily through the vast chamber. "You're right," he said simply. "We are young. We are primitive. We have only been in space for a few decades." The laughter started again, but Jake raised his hand and somehow, the chamber grew quiet. There was something about the way he stood, the way he looked at them, that demanded attention. But let me tell you a story about these primitive humans. Jake began to walk slowly across the platform, his eyes moving from face to face, meeting the gaze of beings from across the galaxy. 50,000 years ago, when the Valdarians were mastering gravity, humans lived in caves. The ice covered most of our world. Food was scarce. Any sensible species would have died out. He paused, letting his words sink in. But humans didn't die. We adapted. We learned. We survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years. We survived plagues that killed 9 out of every 10 people. We survived wars, floods, famines, and disasters that would have ended other species. Alina washed Admiral Velkoth's face. The mocking smile was beginning to fade. You say we fight among ourselves. You're right. Humans fight constantly. But do you know what we learned from all that fighting? We learned that the impossible is just another word for hasn't been done yet. Jake's voice grew stronger, more confident. When the Nexari were transcending matter, humans were building pyramids with nothing but rope and muscle. When the Thraxians were conquering death, humans were sailing across unknown oceans in wooden boats, not knowing if there was anything on the other side. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the translators seemed to be listening more carefully. You mock our chemical rockets. Those primitive rockets carried humans to our moon when most of our people thought it was impossible. You laugh at our robots on nearby planets. Those robots are exploring worlds that would kill us in seconds, sending back information that helps us understand the universe better. Jake stopped walking and faced the council directly. You see primitive technology. I see something else. I see a species that went from living in caves to walking on another world in less than 50,000 years. I see people who split the atom and built machines that think. I see artists who paint beauty that makes beings weep across the galaxy. Alina smiled for the first time since the mockery began. This was the Jake Morrison she knew. This was the man who had talked down dictators and negotiated peace in impossible situations. But most importantly, Jake continued, his voice dropping to almost a whisper, I see survivors. Humans survive things that shouldn't be survivable. We adapt to what shouldn't be adaptable. We find solutions where there should be no solutions. He gestured to his team behind him. You want to know what makes humans special? We don't give up. Ever. When the Valdarians faced their first major crisis, what did they do? When the Nexari encountered something they couldn't understand with their quantum consciousness, how did they react? When the Thraxians met an enemy they couldn't defeat, what was their response? Jake smiled again, and this time there was something dangerous in it. Because I'm betting that whatever you did it the smart way, the logical way, the way that made sense according to your advanced understanding of the universe. He spread his arms wide, addressing the entire council. Humans do things differently. When we face the impossible, we don't calculate the odds. We don't run probability scenarios. We look at the impossible, shrug our shoulders, and figure out how to punch it in the face. The chamber was so quiet that Jake could hear the hum of the station's engines. Every eye was on him now. So yes, we're primitive. Yes, we're young. Yes, we're barely out of our cradle. But I promise you this, we're here to stay. And if you're looking for species that know how to survive, adapt, and thrive in a galaxy full of things that want to kill them. Jake Morrison paused for effect. You just found one. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Jake Morrison stood calmly in the center of the platform, watching the faces of the council members. Some looked thoughtful, others skeptical, but none were laughing anymore. Chancellor Zeftar's metal face showed no emotion, but his voice had lost its mocking tone. Pretty words, Ambassador Morrison. But words are not proof. You speak of human resilience, yet you've shown us no evidence that your species has faced anything truly challenging. Jake nodded slowly, as if he had been expecting this response. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device that Alina recognized. It was similar to the one that had brought them the original invitation, but this one was clearly human-made. You're absolutely right, Chancellor. Words are just words. Jake activated the device, and a hologram appeared above the platform. But actions speak louder. The hologram showed star charts, but these were different from the ones in human textbooks. These showed vast areas of space marked in red, with warning symbols that even the aliens seemed to recognize. Tell me, council members, what do you know about the Void Seekers? A ripple of surprise went through the chamber. The Nexeri crystal beings pulsed with alarmed colors. Several of the other species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Impossible," Admiral Velkoff said, his golden eyes wide. "The Void Seekers were destroyed 3,000 years ago." The entire hegemony fleet confirmed it. Jake smiled that dangerous smile again. Were they? And what about the Crimson Horde, the Shadow Fleet, the Devourer Swarms? With each name, more aliens leaned forward in their seats. These were names that clearly meant something to them. Names that caused fear. Those threats were eliminated by natural disasters, Chancellor Zeftar said firmly. Stellar collapse, galactic storms, quantum rifts. The universe itself destroyed them. Did it? Jake asked quietly. He touched his device again, and the hologram changed. The new images showed human ships. But these weren't the sleek vessels the Council expected. These ships looked like they had been through hell. They were scratched, scared, and patched together with different types of metal. Some had weapons bolted onto their hulls in ways that should have made them impossible to fly. 3 years ago, a Void Seeker nest ship approached our solar system, Jake continued. One ship, but big enough to swallow planets. Our primitive sensors detected it 6 months before it would have reached Earth. The hologram showed a massive black vessel, shaped like a twisted spider. Just looking at it made some of the council members uncomfortable. The Void Seekers had been sleeping, drifting through space for thousands of years. But something woke them up. They were hungry. Jake gestured, and the hologram showed human ships, dozens of them, surrounding the alien vessel. We tried to communicate. They responded by firing weapons that turned 3 of our ships into quantum foam. So we did what humans do best. The scene changed to show a battle unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Human ships swarmed the massive Void Seeker vessel like angry bees around a bear. They were tiny compared to the alien ship, but they never stopped moving, never stopped fighting. We hit them with everything we had. Nuclear missiles, kinetic rounds, laser arrays. Nothing worked. Their ship repaired itself faster than we could damage it. Alina watched as the aliens in the chamber leaned closer, completely absorbed in the story. So we tried something different, something no advanced species would ever consider. Jake paused for effect. We rammed our ships into theirs. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Several council members stood up in shock. Not suicide runs, Jake clarified. Surgical strikes. Our pilots ejected at the last second while our ships, loaded with explosives, punched holes in their hull. Then our Marines went inside. The hologram showed armored humans fighting inside the Void Seeker ship against creatures that looked like living nightmares. It took us 18 hours of fighting inside that ship. We lost 60% of our fleet, but we killed every last Void Seeker aboard and sent their nest ship into our sun. Jake looked around the chamber. That was just the first one. Before anyone could respond to Jake's revelation, the chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Command Captain Lisa Stone walked in, her military uniform crisp and her expression serious. She carried a device similar to Jake's but larger and more complex. "Sorry I'm late, Ambassador," Lisa said calmly. "But I thought the Council might want to see this." Lisa activated her device, and suddenly, the entire chamber was filled with a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. But this wasn't any map the Council members had seen before. This map showed things that weren't supposed to exist. Red zones marked areas the Council believed were empty space. Yellow zones showed patrol routes that no Council species remembered authorizing. Blue zones indicated what looked like battle sites, dozens of them, scattered across the galaxy's edge. Admiral Velkoff stood up so quickly his chair fell over. "What is the meaning of this? These locations are classified Council territory." Lisa looked at him with the kind of expression soldiers give to people who've never seen real combat. "Classified from whom, Admiral?" "Because humans have been patrolling these areas for the past 5 years." She gestured to the map, and it zoomed in on one of the red zones. The image showed human ships hiding behind asteroids, their hulls painted black to blend with space. Sector 77 Alpha, Lisa announced. 2 years ago, a Crimson Horde battle group tried to break through here. 50 ships armed with weapons that could crack moons. The map showed swarms of red dots moving toward Council space. Then smaller blue dots, human ships, intercepted them. The Crimson Horde expected to fight Council forces, Lisa continued. They expected energy shields, gravity weapons, quantum disruptors. They didn't expect humans and modified cargo ships dropping nuclear mines into their formation. The hologram showed the battle in detail. Human ships, outnumbered 10-1, using hit-and-run tactics. They laid traps, used the asteroids as cover, and fought in ways that seemed to break all the rules of space combat. You destroyed them? Asked an Nexari being, its crystal form pulsing with amazed colors. Every last one, Lisa confirmed, though it cost us 12 ships and 200 good people. Chancellor Zeftar's metal arms moved frantically over his control panel. This is impossible. Our sensors would have detected such a battle. Lisa smiled the same dangerous smile as Jake. Your sensors detect energy signatures, quantum fluctuations, gravity distortions. Human weapons don't create those signatures. We use kinetic rounds, chemical explosives, and good old-fashioned metal projectiles. Your sensors are looking for advanced technology, not primitive weapons moving at relativistic speeds. The map showed more battle sites, more red zones where threats had been eliminated. Marcus Thompson stepped forward and added, "We've been reverse engineering captured alien technology for years, but we found something interesting. The more advanced the technology, the more complex its weaknesses." Your ships are works of art, Elena Rodriguez said, speaking for the first time since the presentation began. Beautiful, efficient, powered by forces that bend reality itself. But they're also predictable. You build them to fight other advanced civilizations. Jake nodded and gestured to the map again. Humans build ships to win. We don't care if they're pretty. We don't care if they follow conventional design principles. We care if they can destroy something that wants to kill us. The map showed human ships with weapons mounted in impossible places, armor welded on in patches, and engines that looked like they belonged on different vessels entirely. While you've been sitting here debating the fine points of galactic law, Lisa said, her voice carrying the edge of someone who'd seen too much combat, humans have been out there keeping the nightmares from your door. But why? Chancellor Zeftar asked, and for the first time since they'd arrived, he sounded genuinely curious rather than condescending. Why risk your ships and your people to defend Council space? We've done nothing for you. Jake and Lisa exchanged a look. Then Jake answered with simple human logic. Because someone had to. The chamber fell silent again, but this time it was the silence of beings realizing they had badly misjudged the small primitive species standing before them. The silence in the chamber stretched on. Jake Morrison could see the council members looking at each other, their expressions completely changed from an hour ago. The mockery was gone. The smirks had disappeared. In their place was something Jake hadn't expected to see: respect. Chancellor Zeftar was the first to speak. His metal voice was quieter now, thoughtful. This changes everything. If what you say is true, then humanity has been acting as guardians without our knowledge or request. It's all true, Lisa Stone confirmed. We have full battle records, sensor logs, even some captured alien technology. We've been fighting the galaxy's nightmares while you debated philosophy and transcended matter. Admiral Velkoff looked like someone had hit him with a cosmic truth. His 4 bronze arms moved nervously as he spoke. But why didn't you contact us? Why fight in secret? Elena Rodriguez stepped forward. Would you have believed us? A species you just called barely evolved primates telling you that ancient enemies were still alive and threatening the galaxy. An Nexari being pulsed with embarrassed colors. We would have investigated. And while you investigated, Marcus Thompson interrupted. How many council worlds would have been consumed by void seekers? How many star systems would have fallen to the Crimson Horde? Jake held up his hand for quiet. We didn't fight in secret to prove a point. We fought because it was the right thing to do. That's what humans do. We see something that needs fixing, and we fix it. The chamber buzzed with quiet conversations in dozens of languages. Council members were checking their own records, comparing them with the data the humans had shown. Gradually, the truth was becoming clear. Chancellor Zeftar stood up slowly. His towering metal frame seemed less intimidating now and more apologetic. Ambassador Morrison, I owe you and your species an apology. We judged you by your technology, not by your actions. That was a mistake. A grave mistake, agreed another council member, a being that looked like living water. We assumed that advancement meant wisdom, that older meant better. Admiral Velkoth walked closer to the platform. Your species has done something remarkable. You've protected the galaxy not for glory or profit, but because you believed it was right. That kind of moral courage is rare among civilized species. Jake nodded. We're not asking for praise. We did what we did because no one else was doing it. But we are asking for partnership. Partnership, Chancellor Zeftar asked. The threats we faced are getting stronger, Lisa explained. The devourer swarms are adapting to our tactics. New enemies are appearing at the galaxy's edge. Humans are good at fighting, but we can't do it alone forever. Alina added, your science combined with our combat experience could create something powerful, something that could protect every species in this galaxy. The chamber erupted in discussions. Species that had barely acknowledged each other were now talking frantically about cooperation, defense fleets, and shared technology. Chancellor Zeftar raised his arms for silence. When the chamber quieted, he looked directly at Jake. Ambassador Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize for our treatment of humanity today. We were wrong, completely wrong. He paused, then continued with genuine warmth in his metal voice. The Council hereby offers humanity not just membership, but a permanent seat on the High Council. Your species has proven that true strength isn't measured in technology or age, but in character and courage. Jake smiled, but it wasn't the dangerous smile from before. This was genuine, warm, human. We accept, Chancellor, and we look forward to working with all of you. But, Jake added with a slight grin, I should probably mention that we've been doing more than just fighting in secret. We've also been studying all of you. The chamber went quiet again. Jake's grin widened. Don't worry. We didn't come here to prove we belong among the stars. We came to invite you to join us in defending them, together. And for the first time in the Council's long history, the chamber erupted not in laughter at humans, but in genuine applause for them.